So there's that perspective where parents are like, my child must be reading by 3, my child must be doing this by 4, my child must be doing
Right.
this by, and then you have the teachers, well, let's develop gripping, let's develop this, let's use the pegs to
Uh-huh.
pick up this,
Uh-huh.
let's use, all of those things. So again, everybody wants the best, the
For
best
the
outcome for the
child.
child. But the
So, welcome to another episode of Conversations with AMA. On today's episode, I have someone very important on set with me, not just an early years educator, someone who is an experienced school leader here in Lagos, Nigeria, leading a team of early years practitioner to run a successful early years school, and she is Mrs. Dupe Cole.
Yay. Thank you for having me. Wow. That's
Fantastic.
a lot.
Welcome to this episode. And today we're talking about a very important topic, play-based learning versus structured learning, finding the right balance. So yes, there's always that argument as to, oh, play-based learning is the way. And there are some parents who are thinking, oh, the children just go to school to play. So we're going to be talking about it today. But before we do, we'd like to get to know you. So if you could please briefly introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about your journey as an early years educator.
Okay, thank you again for having me on here. I'm so excited about this. I don't do a
Glad
lot
to
of these,
hear
so this is
that.
nice and different from, what I would usually do. Well, just as you mentioned, my name is Dupe Cole, and I'm the director at Star Early Learning School. My journey in early childhood basically began as the first job that I got
Oh, amazing.
when I was getting into the workforce. This is even before I finished uni. So it was
Okay.
the first job, and it just ended up blossoming through the next 15, 16 years.
Oh, wow, that's a long
Um,
time.
yeah, I did, both in the classroom and in administration. And so, after a while, of course, the older you get, the more responsibilities that come in.
True.
Um, I just kind of, I explored, I'll say I
Other
explored other
options.
areas. I
Okay,
explored human resources. I explored
great.
admin and finance. I explored cybersecurity.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, when the opportunity came, where I was able to decide, what I was going to do in this next phase of my life, there was no debate about it. It was going to be early childhood, where the real passion was, and where, my heart it's just is there. So yes, that's where, that's what brought me to where I am now and to Star Trail, pretty much.
Amazing, amazing. 15 years. That's awesome. And I'm sure that there are skills from the human resource, finance, and administration that you would find very much useful now that you're running your own setting.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, all of it comes, of course, because now I'm back in administration. All of those experiences,
Hmm.
come to play, and thank God I'm able to, navigate through all of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's very good to know. Thank you. So let's get into our topic. Let's get started, first of all, by
Yeah.
talking about play-based learning. I think I would say that when we were in school, when I was studying early child education, most of the things they would tell us then was playway method, playway method. But I've noticed that
Mhm.
that is what has basically been rephrased as to play-based learning. So I just want to ask, when you hear play-based learning, what exactly is that picture that you have in mind?
Play-based learning is really just the approach to, to child development where
Right.
you're bringing play experiences into the development in learning, whether it's social development, emotional development, the academic, just developing all of those skills. And I tell parents, some of these, I say, imagine a child or children who are playing with building blocks. You've put building blocks down for them to play, or they're maybe role playing. They're role
Right.
playing a kitchen or a puppet show. So imagine the skills that are building here. It's so
Hmm.
much bigger than what we can explain if you really think about it. They're building blocks. You're thinking about what's the weight? They're comparing weight. Should I cover this? Should I put this on top? Should I put this on the side?
Right.
Imagine they're thinking about balance. If I put this on top, is it going to drop? So, all of those traditional or structured skills are coming into play here. That's math coming.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
are they doing a puppet show, or they're role playing a supermarket or a kitchen? Imagine the literacy skills that are building here, talking to their friends. And so that's pretty much what play-based learning is. It's just the learning approach that centers on building play experiences. I would put it that way. Yeah, play experiences where children just develop all of those skills that we need them to develop for success.
Okay, okay, amazing. I love that you said that they are gaining structured skills. So even though it is through play, they are actually still gaining skills. I think that's something important for us to note. So let's talk about structured learning. So there's always this conversation around which one is right, play-based learning, structured learning. There's always that conversation with educators trying
Mhm.
so hard to convince parents that play-based
Yeah.
learning is still a form of learning. So what do you think? What do you think about this debate? What do you think is the right way to actually pass this on rather to a parent?
So I think it's because we've approached it as two different things. I think at the end of the day, the structured learning and place-based learning, they have to work hand in hand.
Okay,
We can't approach them as opposites each other. We can't approach
okay,
them as one versus against the other. Choose a method. So
okay.
I think basically at the end of the day, everyone wants the best outcome for a child.
All
That
right.
and that's the bottom line. We always say, at our center that we do everything in the best interest of the child. However, I think we forget that children learn differently. They're kids who are um, kinesthetic learners, they're kids who
Mm,
are visual learners, they're kids who are auditory learners. And so
yeah.
we have to put that, and I say that, that's one of the reasons why the early years is such an important foundation that children should have, because this is the best time to discover how your child learns best.
Right.
So, but anyway, I don't want to deviate from deviate from the question, but I say all that to say that there's a debate because we're looking at different things. From a parent perspective, imagine a parent who has seen another, I'm going to say 2, 3 year old, or maybe three, four
Right.
year old that has already memorized 1 to 100. Another
Right.
a child, so let's look at it from that parent perspective,
Okay.
ah, and the child, there's that pressure. The parent is looking
Mm,
at this other child can memorize 1 to 100. Is my child reading at 3 years old? Can my child write, 1 to 100? Can my child do all of these things at such an early age, at such a young age? And then you have the teachers who are like, there's so many other developmental skills that we need to get to
mhm.
before the child can begin to do all of these things. Have we um have we taught them the fine motor skills, the gross motor skills, all of this? And just to simplify this, there's just so many other developmental skills that need to be done, which is sometimes always better done through play. And so, so there's that perspective where parents are like, my child must be reading by 3, my child must be doing this by 4, my child must be doing
Right.
this by, and then the parent is like, well, let's develop gripping, let's develop this, let's use the pegs to
Uh-huh.
pick up this,
Uh-huh.
let's use, all of those things. So again, everybody wants the
For
best
the
outcome for the
child.
child, but the perspective
Right.
is different, the approach is different. And so at the end of the day, I think maybe the best thing to do is um, communicate, help everyone understand that
Communicate.
this needs to happen. I tell parents who come to our center all the time that I think that don't reduce your expectation, those traditional expectations. There's so many things that need to happen before your child begins to read. There's so
Okay.
many things that needs to happen before your child begins to write, so let's not rush
Mm,
the process. Every child will do it. And then at the end of the day, it's these things, once all of these other things, all of the other developmental goals have been, or skills have been met, it now translates a lot easier into those academic focuses or those structure or traditional things like, okay, is my child reading, writing, it
Mm,
becomes easier for the child at the end of the day. So yes,
true.
so the discussion should never be about this
What
against this, are they
approach or
competing?
not?
The approach should become really should be, how do we balance these two things for a
Okay.
child to get to
Okay.
where we're going?
Okay, thank you very much. I love the idea of communicating the expectations to the parent. So it's a good thing when you're giving them heads up to say, do not expect too much. There's so much that needs to be done. And so we'll cover it in phases. That is absolutely awesome. So
Correct.
now let's look at high quality play-based learning. What should it look like in practice? So if you're saying, for instance, we offer play-based learning, what should it look like in practice?
Good question. Play-based learning definitely has to be intentional. It has to
Intentional.
be purposeful. You
Okay.
can't, so there has to be an end goal, an end objective, because it's still
Okay.
learning. Even if you're using a curriculum, there
Okay.
is a learning goal at the end of it. So I think I don't want to put the responsibility alone on teachers or educators. I think both
Right.
parents and educators have to be very intentional about play-based learning. But
Okay.
maybe for the purpose of this, let's keep it like in the classroom or in a school setting.
Okay.
So the school has to be very intentional about the prepared environment. I think that's one of the reasons why I like Maria Montessori's method.
Montessori, right.
Yeah, the prepared environment is so important. What are you putting before the child? What are the play materials you have put in front of them? Are these purposeful in terms that they help you achieve the end result of that learning goal? You know,
Okay.
you just don't throw um, you just don't throw counters in front of a child and say play with it. What's the learning goal from that? Intentional also in the fact that teachers have to be able to seize the opportunity that they get. um
Okay.
you've already prepared the classroom, you've prepared the materials, everything is right there in front of you. The child is playing, quote and unquote, is learning, and you see
Right.
this happening, you seize the opportunity immediately. How do I expand on, how do I extend this learning that is happening right now? What kind
Okay.
of questions do
Should
I
I be
help
asking?
do I ask the child to encourage critical thinking, to bring, at the end of the day, to that expected outcome that you're looking for? Um, the material that you have or the experience that you have created for the learning, is it going to achieve, it's not every material that achieves that end goal. There's times where the child will just play, enjoy the play, and that's it. Nothing has happened. No
Mm-hmm.
learning has
Mm-hmm.
really happened besides, oh, I had fun.
Right.
But you want to be very intentional about what you're putting in front of the children or in front of the child, to foster critical thinking, to foster questioning, the child being able to question, the child being able to problem solve, and all of those other things. So I think, yeah, most important for a high quality play-based classroom is that intentionality and
Okay.
purposefulness.
Okay, okay, fantastic. So there's intentional, there's purposeful. So basically ensuring that you're not just getting the children to play, you have
Yes.
planned for it, you have prepared your environment for it, you're asking the right questions, you're engaging them accordingly. I think that is a very good one to take away. So now let's look at especially when dealing with parents who have a certain expectation of what learning should look like. So, they're expecting, oh, when I come in, we should see them at the table, teacher in front of the children, the whiteboard or the blackboard in front of them, and that's what they're actually talking about, showing them, even if you want to use resources, but at least let's have that traditional structured setting that we are used to. How do we explain to such parents that that is learning, but play-based methods are also or is also a form of teaching and learning? How do we find that kind of balance to have such parents understand that this idea that you have is learning, but what we're doing here is also learning?
Mhm. So, interesting enough, we had a similar conversation today, and here's what we conclude. Sometimes we assume that because, they're parents, they know.
Right.
Parents don't always know,
Always know.
they don't
Right.
always know what's going on. And so that's where the school has the responsibility to
Okay.
educate, to communicate these things. We're not going to make assumptions that, parents come into the classroom and they understand what's going on.
True.
Um, I think that schools need to start doing a little bit more investing in workshops, parent workshops,
Mm,
explaining, let's not just talk about the general things, but explaining the teaching methods, the different ways that kids
right.
learn, and some of these things. I think it's important for at our center we have what we call the Parent Observation Week. And
Okay.
what happens during this week is that parents can come into the classroom to sit in the classroom and just
And
observe
observe the teachers at
what's
work.
Yes, and just observe
Okay.
the classroom, see what's going on, see what their child is doing, and they have to do this as quietly as possible. They can't interrupt in the classroom setting. They just, sit in a corner and watch. And we tend to prep the children. We ask parents to prep their
Okay.
child as well. Say,
Okay.
I'll be in your classroom today. Just keep walking. I just want to see what the fabulous things you're doing, what you're doing looks like and all of those. So again, honestly, it's parent education, it's parent communication in the best ways that we can do it. Send videos home, send pictures
Mm,
home, send
okay.
anything that helps you communicate that a child is learning. Um, and more important, you're not just sending what is happening, you're sending evidence of the results of what is happening
I
as
like
well.
that.
Yeah,
Evidence.
so it helps, it encourages them, it reassures them more than anything else that okay, they're not just playing. There
Okay.
is, there's an other side or to this. They've learned something. They've, a goal or a developmental goal has been met, all of those things. So it's any way that helps you communicate it to the parent. We can't make the assumptions that parent know this thing.
Fantastic. Parent education, evidence to reassure them of learning. And I love the idea of that parent observation week. That is
Mhm.
awesome. So now let's come to the teachers. There's a parent aspect, there's a teacher aspect.
Teacher
As a
aspect.
school leader, how do you deal or how do you work with a teacher who is used to being basically the center of attention, like the teaching and
Mm.
everything is all about me? Because in play-based learning, it has to be planning for the children, but now there's this teacher who is used to, not because they feel like it has to be all about me, but this is what the teacher has been used to
Mhm.
leading the children. So basically used to adult-led activities, adult-led
Yeah.
teaching and learning. How do we how do you help that person to understand that okay, this you can have adult-led, but you can also have children-led? How do you
Mm.
help to find that balance for that person?
Um, just in the same way that we would do for parents, teachers need to unlearn and
Okay.
relearn as
Okay.
well. Teachers need to understand that times have changed, especially,
Right.
now kids are learning differently from,
Right.
the way that it used to be in traditional classrooms or
Mm,
kids sitting behind the desk and things like that. So teachers also need that training,
okay.
professional development, basically. Teachers need to understand that. There is, that you have to be intentional about what you're doing. You have to be intentional about the learning objective. You still remember that teachers still have this, what's it called, the curriculum, that they need to meet those curriculum objectives or the
Right.
curriculum goals and all of that. So it's them being intentional, but this starts with, training as well. Teachers need to be retrained. They need teachers workshops to help explain
Okay.
what play-based learning is, help them see the outcome of play-based learning, and then they begin to internalize it themselves and use it.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So let me ask this quick question. So I'm sure that you've experienced structured learning, whether as a teacher or maybe with a teacher in your setting, and you have also experienced play-based learning. Which would you say is likely to produce more result?
That's a tricky one. Okay. Honestly, I'm going to say that it has to be the play-based learning.
Okay.
So And I say this because the first thing children learn to do is play.
Right.
You know, it comes naturally to them.
Mm,
If you give that play to them, if you teach them through play, the chances
yes.
are higher that they will, they will learn what you need for them to learn, as opposed to, especially with early years, it's so hard. Children that haven't developed, that skill, that what's it called? Um, that skill to just sit still, and then you want them to sit
To just
still
sit and
for
listen.
and listen. They haven't learned to completely sit still, but you want them to
Okay.
sit still for 35, 40 minutes, while you're just talking to them, giving them an instruction, showing them maybe something on the board. Raise up your hand if you have an answer, those sort of a thing.
Uh-huh.
So in the early years, honestly, play-based learning is what I would say, would be the most effective.
Okay, okay, fantastic. That's very good to know. So now let's talk about showing, you mentioned showing evidence earlier on.
Mhm.
So let's come back to that. What kind of evidence can teachers actually share with parents? So there are teachers maybe in schools that are maybe they do not even have enough resources, but they're finding ways to engage the children in play-based learning activities. What kind of evidence do you think they can share to parents to actually show that learning is taking place in a setting where, for instance, parents are used to worksheets, parents are
Mhm.
used to textbooks, parents are used to writing 1 to 100 as the evidence of the fact that, oh, my child knows numbers, oh, state and capital, oh, my child knows this, oh, okay, writing A to Z, oh, my child knows this. In that kind of setting where a teacher is now trying to make a change, what kind of evidence can that teacher produce to show that learning has taken place, but not in the usual ABC 1, 2, 3 way that they are already used to?
Mhm. Mhm. So first of all, I would say that we live in, such good times now where it's so much easier to create materials for play-based learning. There's so many things that, teachers can reproduce, in terms of, from scraps. It doesn't have to be something significantly
Right,
expensive. It
right.
doesn't have to be something. So there's so many things that teachers can reproduce. The teachers can make. I mean, I know that teachers, if you're in the early years, you have to be creative, with
Creativity,
a lot of things. You
yes.
have to be able to make things out of nothing. Think
Mm,
about, all the scraps that you find around you. What are you
right.
turning them into? So that's the first part of it. Now, the second part of it is actually helping parents understand that they can also do this at home. They can
Okay.
recreate some of these things. Do you have bottle tops at home? Do you have
Okay.
bottles at home? Do you have plastic cups at home? Let the child build something with this, with the cups. That it could be stacking cups, all of those things. And so now what happens is, once you begin to do all of this at home, at school, you're communicating it at home as well, and then you can take pictures, you can take videos, short clips, just send it home, communicate it in the daily journals, whatever is going on. At the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen? The parents will ask the
Mm,
child, what did you learn today? Or the
right.
parents will lead the child on and say, oh, I heard, you
You
did this
did this
activity
and that.
today. Do you want to show me what this activity is? How did this activity, and so it goes both ways. It's
Okay.
in early years, we say that it's a partnership with
Right.
teachers and parents. No one has the bigger authority here. It's, parents can't leave teachers to do it all. Teachers can't leave parents
Family
out of the process.
parent.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
the evidence is in, how you're communicating it to the parents, and it's also in letting them see, some of the things that you're doing. Take short videos, take pictures, send them home, communicate it, help parents understand how they can recreate some of these things at home as well.
Okay, okay. I love that idea. It's a partnership. So
It
nobody is
is.
leaving anyone. We are in it together.
We can't do it. We can't do it. Educators can't do it by themselves. So it has to be a partnership, honestly. Maybe the
Okay.
older the child gets, it becomes easier to say, well, it's the
Hmm.
teacher's responsibility. But in early years,
Yeah,
it's a partnership.
it's a
It's a
partnership.
love affair.
That's interesting. Okay, so now while you were answering that question, I just had another thought as to, okay, there's a teacher, like I mentioned, who's trying to actually make that difference. But now let's look at the teacher who's trying to make the difference. And then maybe, for instance, it's the school this time around that is saying, no, this is what we want. So there is
Mm,
dealing with parents, there's dealing with school leaders. So a teacher who wants to help the school maybe to understand how meaningful play can be when it comes to learning. Maybe the school is already used to structured learning. I just remembered a particular school I visited one time where the school leader particularly told me the children don't have to come outside to play. They play at home.
wow.
They already play at home.
Wow.
Why should they come out to play? That break time is for them to eat and get back to work. And so it took a bit of time trying to explain how it's important for the children to have outdoor play every day. She's even saying not even one day of the week. They play at
Wow.
home, they play in the morning when they come early, after school, before their parents pick them up, they play. Why do they need outdoor break? So at that point in time, I was just pretty much shocked and all of that. So I'm thinking that kind of school leader, if you are a teacher who's working with that person, now you're not convincing the parents. How do you help the school or maybe other teachers who are already there to see that infusing play in teaching and learning can make meaningful, it's quite meaningful as well?
Mhm. Um, Perhaps the teacher is in the wrong place. But I say that, I say that jokingly, very lightly,
Right.
honestly. But I think just like anything else, it just takes the teacher being steadfast enough to prove to them that, what they're doing works.
Mm.
You know, if a teacher is already doing it in the classroom, and again, you have to be the thing about play-based learning, like we said earlier, you have to be intentional. It has to be purposeful, to
Right.
bring out those desired outcomes. And so the teacher in this kind of situation has to be very intentional or has to be very steadfast in saying, I'm going to stick to this, I'm going to do this until they begin to, until
Actually
everyone else begins to
see.
see the difference. Of course, depending on the leadership, it takes it could take some convincing that it could
Right.
take some convincing to say, please give me time, let me try this. If it doesn't work out, then I'm happy to go back to the traditional or
Mm,
to the structured method that you're saying.
that you
But
already
yeah, but
want.
I think that exactly, but I think that the teacher has to be diligent, steadfast, whatever the word is, to say that I'm going to stick to this method, I'm going
Right.
to be purposeful, and it's going to produce the outcomes that we want, so that I can show them that this honestly works well.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. So now let's come to being a school leader. What would you say are some of the challenges that maybe you've had to face in implementing play-based learning?
For me, or for us, it hasn't been a problem, because right
Okay,
from the
awesome.
beginning, we begin to, we explain to the parents that we do a lot of play-based learning as well. Even though
Right.
we have a base curriculum, this is also something that we do. We explain to them why this works. But I
Awesome.
can see how this could be a challenge. So I think a lot of these stem from, that misconception about a parent, about what learning should look like, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So there's that stereotype that it must be a structured classroom, the teacher is at their own desk, um, the children are sitting on desk, and all of those things. There is also that I call it parental peer pressure, where parents are looking and comparing what one child is doing to another and all of those things. But
Yes.
so it's definitely trying to convince them, educating them, teaching them that just give it time. And that's why we say, let them come in and see what's happening as well. So any pressure that is coming from the parents is honestly from a place of of not knowing,
Okay.
of not knowing or understanding how it works. And so it requires patience from the side of the school as well, to say, hey, um, just just trust the process. Just,
Trust the
let's keep watching.
process.
But you also have to continuously communicate what is happening, provide the evidence of the changes as it's happening, so that they understand what it is, what's going on.
Continuously trust the process. That's one thing I'm hoping that parents can take away from here, because I know that we have parents who are in maybe a different environment than your center is in, and I know that for most parents in some areas, they are used to that structured learning that they believe is the only way, and every other way is usually just a waste of time. So I'm hoping that they can listen, watch, and take away all of the tips that we have shared here. Structured learning, play-based learning, either one, the most important thing is being intentional, and the fact that the children are used to play as their work, their routine. It is better to get across to them through play. Thank you very much. We're getting towards the end, but before we do, I'm going to enter into what we call the quick fire round. So I'm going to ask you, I think I have about 5 questions, and I'm going to ask really fast. And I don't want you to think too much about the answers. Just give them to me as they come, and then we'll come to round off afterwards. Okay, so in not more than 5 seconds, one word that best describes play-based learning.
Intentional.
So for some reason, I knew that was the word.
There's only 2 things. It's either intentional or purposeful.
Right. Yeah. For some reason, I knew it was going to be intentional. Okay. One thing you would say that every early years teacher should do?
Observe.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, now this one, indoor or outdoor provision?
That's a tricky one, but I'm going to say outdoor.
Outdoor, okay. I like that. Outdoor. There's always so much to do outdoor. Okay.
Outdoor.
I think I already know the answer, but I'll still ask this anyway. Child-led or adult-led learning?
Oh, child-led.
Child-led.
Anyway.
All right. And then one non-negotiable element of a high-quality early years class?
Prepared environment.
Amazing. Very good. So, and then the last one would be one thing you think every early years teacher should stop doing.
Every early years teacher should stop doing. Let me see. What would that be?
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'll rephrase that. Because I just had a thought now about something I noticed a parent did a few days ago. So I'll rephrase that. Let's see. One thing you think every early years parent now should stop doing.
Oh, comparing.
Good. Fantastic.
Comparing their kids to others.
Fantastic. A very important message. Please do not compare your children with others. They all have their unique abilities. Thank you very much. It has been a wonderful time chatting with you. But we're not going to leave without asking you to advise. What advice would you give to a new early years leader who's trying to navigate this balance? Somebody who's just coming into the business of early years education, and they're still trying to set up, and they're saying, okay, what would parents want? What would be okay for the children? How can we find the balance between play-based and structured learning? What advice would you have for such leader?
I think that for a leader coming into the space, the first thing you have to have in mind is that it's about the child. Just always put behind your mind that it's about the child. It's about the best interest of the child in the end, and so use that to prepare everything else. So the child must come first in preparing the classrooms, in preparing your center in general. The child must come first, so you have to be intentional with the child in mind.
Right. Amazing. I think that's a very good one to take away. So with that, we have come to the very end of this episode. Thank you very much for being here with me. It has been a wonderful, wonderful time. And I look forward to future collaborations. I look forward to...
Definitely, for sure. This was great.
Fantastic.
Bring other teachers on or parents in to engage in these conversations.
Exactly. We need to hear from the parents as well. We need to hear their own side.
Definitely.
We need to hear their own side. So thank you very much.
Thank you for
Have a
having me.
wonderful, wonderful
You
evening.
too. All right then. Take
All
care.
right, you too.